You're listening to the Artist King podcast.
This is DTM of DeltaTangoMike.com, and this is the Artist King podcast, episode 70. Please take the time to download the Artist King podcast in your favorite platform and listen anytime. We would like to hear your opinions and suggestions, so please direct your comments to dtm@artistking.org. The Artist King podcast is available on iTunes, Spreaker.com, Stitcher Radio, and ArtistKingArchive.com. I have known Samax for a long time. So long I don't remember not knowing him and his art. Samax Amen is a professional cartoonist, illustrator, painter, and indie publisher. Samax is the founder of GhettoManga, a quarterly fan magazine devoted to spreading the gospel of good art, music, and vibes. Samax has been busy creating his artist-owned comic properties with a bunch of other great artists under the GhostWerks brand, and Samax has recently started the Starving Artist Anonymous, and he seeks to make the world a better place by breaking the grip of a poverty-affirming mentality from the minds of artists everywhere, by any means necessary. Check him out online at samaxamen.com or GhettoManga.com or starvingartistmindsetisdead.blogspot.com. Remember that every month, Artist King will be giving away a 1-hour consultation with an artist business mentor and a business coach at Azalea Creative in Inman Park. To be eligible, artists must be an Artist King email subscriber. Visit artistking.org and subscribe now to get a chance to be one of those artists, plus receive updates on upcoming events, classes, meetups, workshops, and resources available to artists of all levels. The Artist King podcast is made possible by generous sponsors: the law offices of Deborah Gonzalez Esquire, VelocityScreenprint.net, Revolveskate.com, Old Hub at Giant, Southside Sickest, The Biz Garage, Supernova South, OnyxCon.com, and also DenominatorGraphics.com in partnership with Lucam.com focuses on websites for artists at a discounted rate. Check out ArtistKing.org for details. Now on to our artist interview with Samax Amen.
My name is Samax Amen. I live in Dallas, so that's good. I grew up in a small town, Killeen, Texas, but I've been in the Dallas area for going on 10 years. So I've been in Dallas and Killeen and Waco and Austin. So any of those places works in the from, but I live in Dallas now, so that's what's in my little from box now.
Okay. That's in the from box. That's cool. I like that. No, nobody knows what that is. Nobody. Well, I guess unless you're used to the U.S. mail, where else would you put that from? You know, where else is that box at? Except for letters and stuff.
Well, I mean, you know how you fill out like different kind of profiles. They always want to know where you live or where you're from. Mostly just, I guess people want to have a context to understand, you know, what you say or like what you like, you know. I grew up in a military town, so it's a good example. So I grew up in a military town where most people were from somewhere else. And when you would talk to people about music, and even if I talk to people from my own hometown, you know, I'm a hip hopper, and I would talk about, you know, what rappers that I like, and they would be like, well, where are you from? Like, that would be, you know, because if I didn't like who they liked, or if I had an unusual, like, answer, they wanted to contextualize where I was from, you know, or if you have an accent or you don't have an accent. I mean, like, you live in Atlanta, but I bet you run into people whose accent is thick, and they're like, where are you from? You know, because you don't sound the same as them. And it's like, even people that live somewhere, they should know that, like, there's not one accent for that town. But people always want to know. So once people are always forming, like, a profile for you, even before the social media era. Like, people are always forming this profile. And when they meet you, you're a man of mystery, you know, like Wolverine. And, like, the more stuff that they can fill in boxes, like, it's how people make sense of everything that you say. So I don't necessarily have a Southern accent to other people in the South, I guess. Maybe from people that are in different places might hear something that I don't. But how I answer a question about racism or about sexism or about anything, when people find out, oh, you're from Texas, so that contextualizes somehow everything about me.
Yeah.
The thing that I always point out to people when they can't quite place me is like, well, I did grow up in a military town, so I think that's what maybe helped mix up my accent. And plus, my mom was very strict about how you pronounce everything. Like now I'm grown, so I can mispronounce words in sentences with prepositions if I want to. But when I was at home, no.
Wow. What is your mom? Was she an English teacher or an English writer?
No. I think. Well, okay. So this is interesting. Like something that I know as an adult that I didn't know. She has nothing to do with writing or English, but when I was a little boy, we were on welfare, and my mom was always my whole childhood educating herself, and then eventually now she's a nurse, so she has a master's degree or something, and she's she has an extra license or something. But she went through like my whole childhood. She was educating herself, so I think a lot of it was just holding me to a high standard. I mean, more than anything else. My cousins, most of my family is from Waco, so there's a whole lot of her and their. Your is on the side of your head, your her is on the top of your head. Where are you from? Her or their, all that. But my mom, she ain't allow that. And so the other thing that I learned as an adult that I would have, I guess, liked to know when I was a child is that my great-grandfather, my mom's grandfather, was the first black doctor in the county that I grew up in. So the reason why that matters to me is, and having a daughter now, and it's helped to contextualize for a child that where do you come from, because my mom kind of rebelled against her family, and I grew up in a kind of not knowing any of that history. I grew up in the hood and kind of just saw myself as whatever was around, other than how I was influenced by, my interests and stuff. So that I don't know how I would be different if I knew that growing up. Maybe not at all, but that was something that when I learned it, on Facebook of all places, I was really in awe of it. And and again, him being the first black doctor in the county, my mom, as I said, she became a nurse. At one point, she was working in a hospital where in the basement of that hospital, there's a mural of her grandfather. And she never told, she didn't talk about it to her coworkers and stuff, but she knew where she came from. So I think that when she got to a point in her life where she had kind of a, what they call a come to Jesus moment, where you just got to make a decision about what are you going to do with your life, because you look at your life and you're not feeling it. I think that she probably drew on that, and obviously she went into medicine. So, and maybe not. I'm making a whole extra narrative about my mom's decisions because I'm a comic book writer, and that's part of it, I guess, is that you make up stories about people when you don't know, but based on the little tidbits that you know. But that's me all over. I mean, it's part of my charm.
Okay. Well, cool. I think it all sounds very like that could be a real story. Like that's exactly why. And and I don't know anyone who will say no, you're wrong, unless your family here is like, nah, he don't know what he's talking about.
Exactly.
So tell me about this military town where your whole family lives there. So you weren't a military brat, were you?
Well, that's interesting too. So, I grew up in Killeen, Texas. Most of my family is in Waco, right? So, my mom and dad. My dad was in the military, but I didn't grow up knowing him like a lot of kids. I grew up without my dad around. But what happened? My mom and dad divorced, or they split up when my mom was pregnant with me. I'm the youngest of 3. And so she left my dad. Well, my whole family adored him. He's a hell of a man, as my as I say sometimes. And my mom's whole family adored him. And so they were not okay with her leaving him. So she moved to about 60 miles away. Colleen's about 60 miles away. And just basically kept her distance from the family so that she could have her autonomy. So my dad had been in the military. I didn't know that until I was an adult. The first time that I recall meeting my dad, I'm sure he was around a little bit when I was like a baby. But I'm sure they were fighting all that time, you know. But when I was 17 years old, I met my dad on Thanksgiving. I'll never forget it. And somebody had to tell me, that man that was just talking to you, that's your daddy. And I'm like, okay. At that time, I was 17. I don't care. I'm like the average 17-year-old. I don't care. I don't think I was angry at my dad or whatever for not being around because I wasn't an unhappy child or anything. But I was definitely indifferent. And maybe a little bit of a jerk about it. But the punchline to the end of that story is that my mom and dad remarried when I was in college. Which is also like, I'm like a blend of like very kind of hard to impress cynical person, but that at the center is very optimistic and idealistic and like believes in like miracles and things like that, because I've seen a lot in my life. You know what I mean? And that growing up with my mom the way my mom was, who I was sure my mom would never marry anyone. My mom was a very harsh woman. I love you, Mom, but yeah, she was tough and and just, men, beat it, fool, that kind of thing. And they remarried when I was in college. It was crazy. It was crazy. So I don't even remember what the question was, but yeah, I'm sure I probably answered it in there somewhere.
The answer is in there somewhere. Go back and listen to it.
Exactly.
That if you're a military brat, but no.
So again,
and then more. Mm-hmm.
No, so I grew up there, and I'd say about a good 70% of my friends that I grew up around were military brats, and I know that experience. But the thing is that probably my closest friends, some people in the military, like, they move around a lot, but some people don't. I lived on Fort Hood, which is the biggest military base in the Western Hemisphere, at least at the time. And so it was like the place that people went to. So a lot of kids moved in and out of our town and had that kind of transitory experience. Born in Germany, lived in Korea, lived here, lived there. But I had a core group of friends that I grew up with. So I was very, fortunate in that way. One of my best friends from like that middle school on through high school, his dad was a tank commander, and they lived in the same house, my whole childhood. They still live there, his parents. So it's weird. There's a kind of prototypical military family existence, and I witnessed that. But there's also the kind of people that spend 20 years, 50 years, their whole adult life in the military, and then when they get to a certain point, they stay one place and don't move that much. And that's where his dad was at, I guess, by the time I met him.
Okay. Well, I know that that's the story of military kids. They usually live in a military town, and they travel a lot, and because their lives revolve around the military, the families they meet come from different places, a lot of different places, and so then you're exposed to different stories.
The military, growing up in a military town, I did, like you were alluding to, I met people from every country in the world. It